for another shot fired.
Copy, additional shot fired.
Shots fired, shots fired. He's shooting at us.
Suspect shooting at officer.
Suspect down. He's at the base of the stairs, white t-shirt, white male.
Coming to you from Northern California.
Negative K, nothing further, just
This is the Shots Fired Podcast.
Back on the town property case, and I'll be 76.
With your hosts, Sergeant Kyle Schoberg, retired police officer Mark Redlich, and Deputy Billy. We are America's leading law enforcement resource for training and tactics from experts in the industry. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back. How was you guys' week?
It's pretty good. How was yours? You've been busy.
Yeah, I haven't had a day off in about 10, 12 days and barely made it to this one. Obviously, I didn't make it last week.
I know. We did fill in for you. We had a cool little special guest that turned out pretty good, but we were a little disappointed you weren't here.
I missed you.
Oh, I'm sure.
There were people that thought that you weren't on the show anymore, and I'm like, no, he's still on the show. He's just been super busy. And he had to ditch out on us for a week. And in fact, you almost missed out on tonight.
Well, I couldn't miss tonight because we have a very special guest.
We do.
Yeah, we
have
do.
a special guest.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
And it's my dad.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's my dad. So, we'll get to him here soon. But before that, let's hear from our sponsor.
Yeah, heck yeah, we're excited.
That's some exciting news. We have a sponsor.
That's
Yes,
right.
we do. Absolutely. Shots Fired Podcast has a sponsor. Hell
right.
yeah. We're proud to announce we've partnered with our new sponsor, TAC Ops. TAC Ops tactical training conferences and trade shows provide tactical training for patrol, SWAT, TIMs, and corrections. This year's events will host 50 tracks to choose from and a vendor show with over 100 exhibitors showcasing the latest products, technologies, and services. These events have something for everyone, from lecture-based classes and incident debriefs to combative and live fire courses. They also provide instructor certifications in taser, pepperball, distraction devices, impact munitions, OC chemical munition, and an AR-15 armor course. In addition to the great training value, they host networking functions with entertainment and some great food and drinks. The events for 2022 are listed in the description. Please check out their website, swatconference.org.
All right, without further ado, I'm very happy and excited to introduce our very special guest. I might be biased about it because he is my dad.
Hey, he kind of looks like you too, actually.
Yeah, except for with hair.
Well, actually,
Yeah, a little different.
I was gonna say what I noticed was he and Mark actually look the same age. But Mark is like at least 30 years younger.
I'm excited to have somebody here that's relatable to me.
Yeah,
And that can take
exactly. That's
part of
what
the
I was
brunt of the
thinking.
joke.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
So-
Yeah, I like it. I mean,
Yeah. Anyways, all right, go ahead. Let's introduce your dad, man.
so my dad, Bill, has a long career in law enforcement. I think just over 30 years in law enforcement. He's since been retired for, 15 years-ish or somewhere around there?
12.
12, around 12 years. So we like to talk to him about some of the changes that some of the changes that have happened in law enforcement, as well as with those changes, some of the great stories that you have that I don't think modern officers will have anymore because
No. And that's what I want to
things
hear.
have changed. And then your path from, basically you've done it all in law enforcement as far as ranks. You started as a CSO and you left as a chief. So
Yeah, that's
Wow.
freaking awesome.
that's
That's
bottom
every
to
step.
top, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally starting at the bottom and finishing at the top.
And then
that's cool.
I'm sure Mark will like to hear some of your background in SWAT and patrol and mostly management, though, right?
I could impress him with my SWAT.
Yeah.
Well,
I
hold
liked
on.
it.
Bill, were you ever a canine handler?
No.
No, interview's done. Thank you for your time.
He was smarter than that. He's like, I'm going to SWAT.
Yeah. All right. Let's.
So
kick it
with
off.
that, you started in 73. And let me do the math at that, knowing your
You were
your
18?
young age, you're
I was
18, 19.
18.
And that's straight out of high school, basically.
I took the summer off and then went to work.
Okay, and that was with
It was with SAC PD, Sacramento Police Department. I was a student trainee Mark knows what that is. Most people don't, but it's like a clerk position, and you work full time in the summer and in the winter during school because you're required to go to college. You work part time.
So that's a form of kind of getting your foot into the door at the department, learning how kind of the department works before you become a cop, right?
Getting a background and it doesn't interfere with your education that way.
Nice. And you were 18, right? Out
18.
Finished summer, enjoyed that.
Went to the academy when I was 19 or 20, and as a CSO, community service officer. In those days, and I don't know if you can enlighten me, Mark, but in those days, CSO went to the academy, then went on the street as a CSO, and basically we just took paper. And then when I got older, when I was 21, then I could have entry into law enforcement. That's when I started SAC-PD at 21.
As a full-time cop,
Yes.
right?
And were you still in college when you started with SAC-PD, or were you graduated at that
No,
point?
still in college. In fact, I probably was in college most of my life. So.
Yeah. And that's Sac State, right?
Sac State.
Criminal justice, or what is it? What was it?
I got my BA degree at Sac State. I got a master's from Cal Poly and another master's from Sac State.
Okay. And then you also did post-command college, right?
Post-command, class 14. I don't know what they're up to now.
More.
Bill, tell us,
14.
Yeah, Google that, somebody.
Yeah.
tell us about
114.
I want to hear some of the assignments that you've held. Talk about some of the assignments you've held throughout your career prior to going the promotional route.
Before we get into that, I want to thank you guys. And we have, I have some conditions, and you've met my conditions, and that is that I get a half-hour break because I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And we started this early. I see that. 'Cause I go to bed at 8. So, and by the way, this is what you're going to look like in 30 years.
I hope to look like you in 30 years, because these guys give me a hard time already.
I was wondering what happened to
Mark,
Mark.
we shave our.
Yeah. I do notice that you shave for this. I appreciate that. Kyle, on the other hand,
Kyle,
Yeah.
Billy.
no.
Hey, I've already told my wife I'm doing a no shave 2022, so I'm trying to get it as long as I can.
Awesome. I'm going to root
She's
for
really
you.
gonna hate me.
Got to clear through that.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
That might look like shit, dude.
No.
It probably is.
No. You have the style. It'll look great. I'm excited about it. I am excited about it.
All right.
So you did. You started that. So just give us a brief overview of the career, and then we'll break down each step and hear some more about it, just so we can get a little bit of knowledge of what you've done before.
And I'll be generic with some of it.
Yeah.
But I started at this student trainee to CSO officer, and then SAC PD on the street, El Paso Heights. So you could appreciate that.
Yeah. Is that back when they used the call boxes?
We did have call boxes.
Yeah.
real
We
quick,
actually had a radio back then.
Yeah.
for everyone that's listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, that's a rough area in Sacramento. I mean, it's a bad area. So.
In the call boxes, or back then when you would, if I'm right, you had the call boxes were sporadically stationed around the city, sometimes on telephone poles, and that's how you would communicate with dispatch.
We didn't have to do. The old timers did it. A light would come on to notify them that they have a call and go to the call box.
Oh shit!
And then they'd go to the call box. As the years progressed, the call boxes obviously became obsolete, except for the cops who wanted to use it to make
Those other calls, those untraceable calls.
And I still have the call box key because it's the same one that works the traffic signals. I don't know if that still is the case. And you could go in there and sometimes you find a little pint.
That's funny.
But those were the days.
Yeah, you'd think that officer before.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So you did the CSO route, did the
SAC
police officer route.
PD. I took a short time off. I actually went overseas and worked as a bodyguard, and in Nigeria and Beirut, Lebanon. And then I came back. I wanted to go back at SAC PD, but they didn't have any openings, so I went to Placer County.
Oh,
And I'm giving away an agency. Is that okay?
No, yeah, that's fine. I mean, we don't work there,
I don't
so
tell
we don't
them.
care.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of any of them. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, no,
okay.
go ahead.
Placer
Oh
County,
yeah, and I'm not ashamed of it either. It's
No.
just, I don't think either of us are, or any of us are.
No.
It's just,
Yeah,
No, but I can.
you
guys
can
can't
say whatever you want.
They
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
come
They're
not
after
gonna
me.
fire you.
Bill, I'll say
take my
stuff
pension.
with you because I can too.
Yeah.
yeah.
The retirees can say it. Placer County, and I worked at Lake Tahoe and Auburn and Roseville, and those are again mean nothing to you. But one is most people would know where Lake Tahoe is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
North Shore Tahoe. After 3-4 years there, I laterally transferred because you could do it then to a sergeant's position. I was a deputy at Placer, and then I became a sergeant at Rockland Police Department. And for perspective, Rockland at the time I started there was 7,800 people.
And we'll tell everyone what it's at now. 80, 70,000?
80, 90,000.
Yeah. So quite significantly larger.
And I was there for 19 years. 19 years, it was for 10 of the 19 years, it was the fastest growing, one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in California.
And that's Rockland.
That's Rockland.
That's like what, for reference for people listening, 25 minutes east of Sacramento.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Small
again,
town.
We'll bring Lake Tahoe into this. It's on the road from Sacramento to North Shore Lake Tahoe,
Yeah.
Yeah, passing through it.
passing through. From there, I took a position, several positions, but they were positions at the state. As an investigator, I did some correctional work. They call it inspector general. So I did for corrections. Then I worked parole board. And my last promotion, Arnold Schwarzenegger appointed me as director of security and law enforcement for the California Lottery.
That's pretty cool.
Arnold Schwarzenegger did.
The governor, actually.
The,
That's
the governor.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
You got to meet him.
when he was governor.
Well, now there's a good story. No, I never met him.
I was going to ask you.
Did you smoke cigars with him?
No, I didn't. I couldn't get
out in his
I couldn't
tent.
get in the Capitol.
Oh,
Now,
'cause
my daughter worked on political campaigns, and so she met him, but
Wow.
I never did.
Really? Wow.
Because he had at the state capitol in Sacramento, he actually had a tent assembled outside so he could smoke cigars out there.
There's a horseshoe, and in the middle of the horseshoe is outside, and the horseshoe, they call it, is where all the offices are. And outside it, he built a tent so he could smoke his cigar.
Why did he have to build a tent? Why couldn't he just
For weather?
Rain. And
Rain.
Yeah.
sun.
Oh, so for inclement weather. Okay, got it.
And he's the governor. He can do what he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I retired from the lottery
As a chief.
as a chief. The position was deputy director of security and law enforcement. It was it was a law enforcement agency, and I had 30 investigators working. And I was able to retire, got my years in, and then it was I did consulting work after that. But the lottery was it was still law enforcement or the investigative, and so it had a perspective.
Right.
Yeah, and I do have some questions for that. I'll save that for a little later because it was the tail end of your career. But so throughout your career, what were some specialty assignments that you held?
Well, and Kyle, you can appreciate this because it was a small agency. When I was first with Placer, we started the first SWAT team. But you couldn't call it SWAT in those days.
Why is that?
It was offensive.
Was it too tactical or
Too tactical. SWAT sounded like, because I think LAPD started SWAT, and so we didn't want to be too close to that type of agency.
That's interesting.
It was a set team, special enforcement.
which is what they're called still?
Yeah, it's still to this day. You started that.
I didn't start it, but I was
You're the first.
I was a founding member of the set team. Yeah.
No shit.
And I have a picture.
Wow.
I can give you guys that picture.
Yeah,
Really?
We'll throw a picture
Yeah,
up
throw
on the
that
show.
It was so long ago.
That's cool.
It was 1980, and we were so poor. That agency was so poor that we had to borrow fatigues.
No kidding.
There was a guy on the team who was a reserve in the military, and we didn't have anything. We had Levi's, and so we had to go off to SWAT school.
Dude.
And you remember SWAT school?
Yeah.
And it was
yeah.
it was FBI SWAT, and so we'd go. We can't show up at SWAT school.
With jeans on?
Jeans on.
But you're in Placer County. That's what you wear on patrol.
I just want to,
In our snowsuits.
honestly, I want to make note of that. I think how fucking cool would it be if SWAT teams just wore jeans and
I think
that'd be pretty cool.
what I think is pretty rad is the fact that we have someone sitting right here
I know.
that started a SWAT team.
Yeah.
42 years later,
That's cool.
it is still called the SET team in Placer County.
And
That is pretty
I'm
rad.
still with you. So that how's that?
That is pretty rad.
Which stands for the Special Enforcement Team, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Because they are
also
special.
to put that they are special. Into perspective is we were so poor we didn't have weapons. The sniper had to bring his hunting rifle, and he was a sniper because he was a hunter, and we didn't have automatic weapons.
That's why you couldn't be called a SWAT team. It would have been the SAT teams. Special in tactics.
Tell us what weapons, like what did you guys have? All the SWAT guys that are listening are probably wanting to know, like what was it like to be on a SWAT team back then? Like what weapons did you have? Like what armor, if you had any vehicle,
We had
armor
with
vehicles?
a piece of wood and a big string on it, and then you pull it back.
An arrow.
Gotcha.
What we did was there was a Thompson machine gun from the 20s.
Yeah.
I don't know how Placer County got it from some gangster or something. It was in the archive, and or maybe they bought it and it was part of the. I probably was part of the agency.
I like
back
getting
then.
it from the gangster. Sounds
Okay,
better.
I'll say gangster.
Yeah, it's
And,
realistically probably what
Sounds
happened.
legit.
They took that to an armorer, a gun dealer, and he loved it. He says, what do you guys need? And we go in, we picked out our weapons.
No kidding.
And so we equipped the entire team, and that time we finally got uniforms, SWAT. We could,
What was the team? It was like 10? Was it less than 10 or?
I think there were 8.
Okay.
8 of us.
8 studs.
And I was backup entry, so I had an Ingram.
An
Heard
Ingram?
of an Ingram?
No.
Okay.
It's an old
Ingram
rifle.
submachine gun, right?
Old submachine gun, about
Yeah.
like that, and it shot 45 rounds.
Holy hell.
Mini 14s, of course, 870 shotguns.
Yeah, I would imagine the shotgun was popular back
we
then.
were happy because we had 1911 45s. Those were sidearms.
Yeah.
Did you have any body armor? No, huh? Body armor. What's
armor.
that?
We wore 2 shirts. And,
Yeah,
like, hey,
body
I'll stop
armor,
it.
like jackets.
I had body armor because when I started at SAC PD, my mother bought me a second chance vest.
No kidding.
Wow.
Your mother bought it for you.
My mother, and I showed it to Billy. He goes, "What is that? It looks like a tent." And I wasn't that big back then, so
That's crazy. That's wild.
and so no, we didn't. But no shields,
Just
So, I mean, and you
straight
guys are
testosterone.
flashbangs.
You guys were doing entries and shit too, right? I mean, it wasn't like,
Yeah, but it's pretty rural. We would go to camp. We went to a campground for a guy who got shot in Oxbow, way out in the middle of nowhere, and we drove there. We had a converted bakery truck.
I think they actually SAC PD has an old.
We did have a bakery truck.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
And we'd load in this thing and go up the mountains, and the thing would only do about 25 miles an hour, but we did have lights and sirens on.
And all that did was a
Cars were
distraction.
passing us, so
Oh my God.
that's how we would get, and we'd go to, barricaded or we'd go out on fugitives, but it wasn't a full-time team like Mark was on.
Yeah, yeah.
It was part-time.
Yeah.
We train once a month, and then from there, you're on call, and in those days it was pagers, and they paid you out. You show up because it was such a vast county that you might, if you're leaving from the south part of the county and the incident is in the south part, you just go to the incident, and the bread truck would show up.
That is funny. That's
we kept
funny.
our equipment with us, like probably you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Left there, and I was in Lake Tahoe, and I was actually the first resident deputy, and I don't want to offend anybody, but it was called Squaw Valley. I was
Yeah.
first resident deputy. in
Olympic Valley, folks.
Now, yeah. And the Palisades.
Yeah.
And we, I was so good at it, apparently, they didn't renew the contract. So
You started and ended that?
I started it and ended it.
Well, that didn't work out.
Yeah, you're a hell of an employee.
So that was my claim on the resident deputy. And then from there I went to Rockland. Rockland, because Placer County had their SWAT team, they were usually a distance, so we started one in Rockland. That was the first Rockland SWAT team. It was an independent team. It was a municipal team. Roseville didn't have one, so we would get calls out to the neighboring agency, and Lincoln, which is another neighboring agency.
And those are all small. They're still to this day. They're all comparable in size now. But
Roseville was a big brother, so
and Roseville still is a little bit bigger. But for the most part, they're like.
So
they've been called Tri-Cities before, you know.
Tri-City.
And I think now their SWAT team is shared between those three.
A regional team.
It's a regional team.
Rockland, Roseville, and Lincoln.
Lincoln, yeah.
Huh.
And I'll tell you that again, you couldn't call it SWAT. So the chief at the time, he wanted to come up with a cute name, and he called it RCAT, Rapid Containment
Action
Team.
Yes. I want to be on the action team.
Because you can't call it SWAT. But by then, we had a little bit more money.
It's like a superhero squad.
Yeah.
We were RCAT.
That's funny.
That evolved.
Claws on the side of your car.
Roseville, Rockland have a combined team.
Yeah. Now they do, yeah.
And it was probably what they needed back then, because it's Rockland. You're not going to get too many call outs. But we got a few, because it's
Sure.
It's a little town, but it had its problems.
Yeah. So how long were we on the SWAT team for over there?
I was a sergeant on the team, and it was about 7 years. And then it was time to get off, I wasn't a young man when I got on the team. Well, I guess I was.
Gonna say
About my
About
age.
Kyle's age.
Yeah, man. I did start. I went to the academy when I was 12. I don't even know if I was 20. I think I may have been like 19 and a half. But I was on the road off training, off FTO for when I was 20. I wasn't 21 yet.
Yeah, I remember going.
I was young.
Yeah.
We had your birthday at your apartment complex, Kyle, and that's when I thought I was going to get robbed.
Yes, that probably is true. Because I was getting paid $14 an hour while I was in the academy, so I had to make do. But
I'm still afraid Kyle's gonna rob me.
Yeah. Well, where he lived, I thought I was going to get robbed.
it was in a shitty little area, but I had to do what I had to do. But I mean, like even back then when I went to that was so rare for somebody to start that young. I mean, now it's even more rare. But
And you guys talked about on a previous podcast, and I was 19 when I was in the academy. Got out when I was 20, became a CSO. And then when I'm 21, I was on the streets. And there was no way I belonged on those streets.
yeah,
I was 21. I grew up at home.
I agree.
I was living at home.
Did you when you say that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, when you say you shouldn't have been on the streets, you recognize that now, but at the time, was it?
Oh, no.
Did you know, or were you out of your element? Were you excited? Like,
Oh, no, I was begging them to put me on the street. I knew I could do it. I was,
but wisdom has shown otherwise.
and looking back, it was probably a little young to be on the street.
Oh yeah, totally.
And not to dog on Kyle, but Kyle's in Grass Valley on the street at 20, 21.
Yeah.
You're on the
Small
streets
agency, yeah.
in Sacramento at 21.
Yeah, vastly different.
But I put it in this perspective, and I'll give you one example of it. Because small town, when I went to Placer, I left Sac PD, and my last call I had at Sac PD was a guy broke into a jewelry store with a tire iron, and I showed up. Actually, I was coming out of the Code 7, and
Which is tell everybody what Code 7 is.
It's very important.
The most important code.
Yes. That and Brown, Code Brown.
going to my car, parked in the red zone, and the guy broke the window in front of me. I pulled my 38 special,
Revolver.
Yeah.
pointed it at him. He laughed at me, and so we were
That's
running
crazy.
around the car, and I didn't want to shoot him. But he kept coming at me with a tire iron, and I called for backup, and he kind of hesitated, and then we were kind of in a standoff, and all I could hear were the sirens and if you can some of you can remember the 440 Magnum Dodge engine. When the 4 barrels opened up, you could hear the 4 barrels for 10 miles probably. I could hear those 4 barrels opening and the sirens, and they were with me in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
5 units in 2 minutes. No, didn't have to shoot him. I actually kicked him in the nuts.
How did you kick him in the nuts?
Well, he held it up, and I went in and I kicked him. In
Shit.
retrospect, should have shot him.
Hey, Swift kicking the balls. That'll do it. That might have hurt worse, probably.
Now put me 2 years later in Lake Tahoe, and I told Billy this story. And now I'm in Lake Tahoe.
I've heard most of these stories, I think.
And the substation, and there's 3 of us on duty. I'm in Kings Beach, which is almost in Nevada. And my backup is in Tahoe City in the snow. So it's probably 45 minutes to an hour backup. And I see a guy, and I get a call to a guy naked outside in the snow. And he's standing in the snow when I arrive. Big guy, naked. He's taking snow and he's packing it up his ass.
Holy shit. I'd leave.
Packing it up his ass. And so I go, okay. So I call for backup because I had to do it on the radio, on the car radio, because our portable radios didn't work out there.
Yeah.
So we packing it. I call for backup, and urgent voices on the other end. We're on our way. We'll be there in 30 minutes. Well, I knew it wasn't going to be 30 minutes, but 30 minutes. This thing, it's like Top Gun. This thing is going to be over in 2. And so he's packing his snow up his ass, and every time I got close to him, he went berserk. So I backed away, and finally, I go, well, when I get close to him, he goes crazy. My backup's a long ways away. So I talked to him from about 15 feet away, and he's calm. Still had the snow up his ass. And probably melting by then.
That's why I had to keep packing it.
Keep packing that snow. And so I did what to do. SAC PD, they'd already be there.
Yeah, true.
We'd be knocking him to the ground and handcuffing him, or to the snow and handcuffing him. And so I knew that wasn't going to happen. It's also cold outside, not for him apparently, but it's cold. So I threw him my handcuffs, told him to put them on. He put them on. Told him to get in my car. He got in my car. Didn't have to search him.
So you threw him your handcuffs?
I threw him my handcuffs. And I totally against my Koga defensive tactics training that I had in SAC PD. But that's all I could do. I didn't want him running away, going somewhere. So I did it. He handcuffed himself. He went in, got in the car, as long as I didn't get too close to him. Backup arrived. By then, I'm already driving to the jail. And come to find out, it's PCP. Well, back in the 70s and 80s, PCP was a big thing.
Yeah.
He was so overheated from the PCP that he's packing
Snow up his ass?
snow up his ass.
Wow.
So I use that story as a perspective that big city backups and
It's there immediately.
It's there.
Yeah. We've talked about that. We've talked about that.
out in the boonies, or when you only have one other officer on, it might take a little while, or not at all. So you learn to talk.
Yeah.
And I didn't need to really have that skill at SAC PD. I just call somebody and a bunch of police cars show up. Up there, no, you better work it out.
Yeah.
And you better be friendly with the locals.
We are very lucky where we work. I mean, you're right. We'll get 50, 100 cops in, several minutes, but I don't know I don't know what to take of that story, or what's more crazy, the guy shoving snow up his ass, or like the fact that your dad threw him his handcuffs and the guy just puts the handcuffs on. Like,
it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
You're like, that's
Yeah,
I've heard that story so many times. I'll tell you, I've honestly heard this story many times, and the story's never changed. I can tell you that much, which tells me, and I know my dad. He's not an embellisher, but it's a crazy story.
what if he shoved the handcuffs up his ass?
Then I'd need new handcuffs.
So you wouldn't.
Then you're fucked.
Waiting for backup.
And since you buy your own handcuffs in those days, they would probably have a fight.
That's crazy. That's wild. So what I'm curious, like, you know, man, policing back then is so, I mean, it's not even comparable to what it is now, obviously, right? Like, you guys didn't have not even a thought of body cams. And can you even imagine back then thinking if you guys were to have body cams and in-car cameras, right? I mean, like, if someone came to you in the 70s or even the 80s and said that, you would everyone would laugh their ass off and say, you're crazy, right?
Yeah. In the early 90s, and I have to, this is a plug to Rockland, we had a chief, he was pretty progressive, and he had some ideas. And one of them was he got a camera for the cars. And it was as you would expect, a big, almost needed a VCR to play it. But that was our first dash cam, and I think it was the first dash cam in Placer County, may even have been in the region. And he also developed the first computer system. So we had computers in the cars, but they were laptops, and nobody else had computers in the cars. And so it was progressive in that regard, but still, as I progressed, you know, in my years, 30-something years, time was changing, but you really didn't notice it. And then when you get out and you look back and you go, boy, a lot changed. I mean, for perspective, Mark, when I started at Sac PD, I got my paycheck. Well, when I was a student trainee, I was making $2.90 an hour.
Oh, shit.
Oh, that was a lot of money.
What? Wow.
And then my first paycheck at Sac PD as a police officer was $1,200 for the month. Don't talk overtime.
Right.
No overtime back then. You worked overtime, you didn't get paid for overtime. And I did what every good cop does when he gets his first paycheck. I went out and bought a car.
That's what I did. Yeah.
So,
like an idiot.
But over the progression of things evolved, and I really didn't notice it till I looked back on stories and Billy telling me things, and I'm thinking, there's a camera on it. In fact, I went on a ride along, and I'm with Billy, and we're chit chatting in the car. He had a prisoner in the back, Christmas Day, or Christmas night, and he had a bad guy in the car, or a warrant or something. I don't think he took warrants. And we're talking, and this guy's chipping away, and I'm taking about enough of it. I'm gonna tell him, shut the fuck up. And Billy looks over at me and he reads me so well, and he goes like this, cut it off, don't say anything. I said, what? And later he says, I got the recorder on in the car. Oh, okay. Dad, you don't know anything. There's cameras out here and everywhere, and people have cell phones. What? And they have cameras on them. What?
Billy, you arrested someone on Christmas?
Yeah.
Dude.
I think I took a 245 report.
245
that night.
What's a drive-by? You got to tell people what a 245 is.
A shooting. So I went to like a drive-by shooting, and there was 2 people shot, and I ended up having to take that report. And I was like, I mean, when you by the time we get there, just something like that, it's excitement for a little bit, because you're trying to figure out what's going on, where's the suspect, but then like very rapidly becomes, hey, right along, Dad. Sorry, it's going to get boring for you for a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple questions. Just from me being a canine handler, from a canine perspective. I mean, back in the 70s, I know in Sacramento Police Department, like I want to say mid 70s is when the canine unit became a thing.
I remember canines.
And you guys got dogs. Do any stories stand out to you? I mean, working with the canine guys, or like what was that like for the non-handlers?
It was scary, I'll tell you that, for all cops.
Being introduced to, now you guys have these big German Shepherds, and like that's got to be kind of like an intimidating thing for you as like not being involved in that, right? But like having to work around these dogs. Like, what was that like? I'm curious.
Well, I think it was in those days, it was maybe one canine for the entire city, and he'd be on the south side, and you're in the north, and you're not going to get that canine. So I didn't work around him that much. But I will tell you, when we got to Rockland, and this kind of, so you don't think I don't have a canine background. The same chief of police who brought the computers and the RCAT and the advances, the SWAT team things. He said we need a canine. Okay, in Rockland. And so I said, oh, okay. So we officer wanted to be, and he wanted to train. He was training with Sac County and canine, but he didn't have a dog. So we did, as you would expect, you do fundraisers and get money, and we still have to fund it. The city manager did not like dogs, did not like canine. And he said, no, it's in the budget. It's budgeted. No.
For like liability purposes, or just
he didn't like dogs. I don't know why. And then one day we get the dog.
Jesus.
Sorry, CM.
We get the dog. It was our first Rockland dog. His name was Bear. He was a long-haired shepherd.
Nice.
Schutzen trained.
Schutzen, yeah.
Schutzen?
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember the commands. I was learning the commands. So we started working around. That's really when I worked around a dog quite a bit. Now, when you're canine, and then you're also report taker and an accident investigator, and then you're canine and you get calls. But because there's only one on duty in Placer County and one in Rockland, and maybe Roseville had one. But you were saying in your canine experience, the dog knows. The handler needs to learn that the dog knows. And people have told me that over the years. And we chased a guy through a park. He burglarized a house. We chased him. We're on foot. I said, get the dog. Okay, dog. Dog goes on track. Is that what you call it?
Yeah. It could be, yeah.
Tracking. And we're down in the woods. And there's a little creek running through. And I'm behind, obviously. This is a two-man canine.
That's the best spot for you.
Yeah. All of Rockland is there, all three of us. The dog, me, and the dog handler.
That's funny.
And we're looking for the guy, and the dog keeps hitting on the creek. And the handler goes, his name is, the dog's Bear. Bear, what's wrong with you? Pulls the dog. And we go a little bit further. Dog makes a U-turn, goes back to the same spot.
That's a clue.
And
That's what we call a clue in the canine world.
Bad dog. Good job. And the dog's, and I go, well, what's it? And he says, well, maybe something's there.
You think?
Yeah. So we both shine our flashlight, and the guy is underwater
Wow.
with a straw,
No shit.
just like in World War II.
I've actually seen that. No
and he's
shit.
underwater, and the dog hit on him underwater, and we didn't know it. And he couldn't read the dog. So,
It sounds like he.
so as a brand new handler, and he's still learning.
Yeah, he's
how to do
learning.
it.
Yeah.
But I had worked in Placer County with the canine, and in those days, the canine, we were shorthanded, and you needed somebody to go to graveyard, and my partner was the canine officer, and they're going to send him to graveyard with his canine. Mm-hmm. Okay. But he says, I'm not going to graveyard with working alone. He says, well, you have a dog. No, but I need a partner. Because everyone else has a partner. So for 3-month rotation, it's a 3-being car. Me, the handler, and the dog in the back. So it's
my God.
very unusual, but I got used to, getting used to the dog farts and things like that.
Yeah, being a handler is very interesting. I mean, there's a lot to it. But does a dog? I don't know if you're ever present for like a dog bite, or does a dog bite stand out?
Yes.
Any story of like a dog bite stand out to you?
That dog bit my mother.
Shit. All right. Well, let's hear that story.
My mom came for a ride, and we're in the briefing room, and
So the four of you are in the car now?
and we're just standing in the briefing room.
Bear's on your
and Bear
lap.
just gets upset and just snaps at her and just takes a little nip. And bad dog. This is the same dog that just came from kindergarten, with the kids petting him, but
Yeah.
he didn't like my mom, and so he kind of bit them. But yeah, I've been on them where they got their bite. And chased them down, but not as, maybe I can probably recall twice, 3 times.
Yeah. It's always interesting to talk to cops or whatever that have experienced like dog bite. I don't know if you guys have seen it, or I'm sure you
Nope,
have.
never.
I've experienced a dog bite.
I mean,
Yeah, I think Mark knows something.
Yeah,
I
I saw it.
it's always interesting being a cop and you see that and you're like, holy shit, like this animal's like mauling somebody, right? Like that's not normal to see, you know, like, you know, we just had one 2 nights ago on a little pursuit, and guy runs and whatever, dog gets deployed and bites a guy, and two new cops are on the call, and I could just see the look on their face. Like, it was like, holy shit.
Not knowing how to process what they just saw.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyways.
So a story comes to mind that I want you to talk about that I've, again, heard a few times.
Must be true.
And and it involves that canine handler that you're talking about, but no dog, and you guys in a little bit of a fight with somebody that might have been on.
Oh yeah. Well, that canine handler, he didn't have his dog at the time, and we'd both gone off to weaponless defense instructor course. So we're both instructors in weaponless defense, and we did like consulting on the side. We did smaller agencies and trained them in that. So we're pretty proficient in weaponless defense and impact weapons. And we go to a call, and this guy's just, again, I think he was on
PCP or something.
PCP, but he was out of his mind, and the fight's on a residential street, and we fight this guy, and he's kicking our ass. Well, we were trained in a thing called a sternomastoidal nerve stimulation. So if you do that, it perks the nerve. It's painful. Their hands come out because he was trapping his hands underneath him. We couldn't get his hands. Wanted his hands, obviously, because we didn't know what he had in his waistband. So we're doing this sternomastoidal nerve to the back of his ears over and over and over. Finally, he pops them out, and we're still fighting. And another unit finally shows up. We couldn't even put the call out. And we get this guy finally handcuffed. The unit shows up. I said, how'd you know to come here? We didn't get the call out. We were too busy fighting. He said, a neighbor called, said, better send more cops. You're two out here getting their ass kicked.
Oh, shit. That's awesome. That's a good neighbor.
And we load the guy in the car, and I'm driving him up to the jail now. Jail is 45 minutes away, even from Rockland. It's way up in Auburn now. So it's one small town to another small town, to the county jail. And he's calmed down, driving him up there, and I'm asking him, what were you thinking? What were you doing over there? He says, what? Come on. What's your problem? What's your name? Tell me. What? I says, this jackass. And so get him to the jail, and they're asking him questions, and he's going, what? And I go, well, I didn't think he was deaf.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
So they brought the nurse in, booking nurse, and she shines this thing, and he says, I have never seen anything like this. This guy has 2 broken eardrums. I wonder how that happened. I said, I wonder how that happened.
Oh, my gosh.
Apparently that can stimulate the eardrum, too.
The pressure points. That's funny.
Whoops.
Yeah. Or was that like back then, though, that was just like that's like operational, right?
The guy wasn't a bad guy. He came in later and apologized. And by then I asked the nurse, I said, what do we got to do? Oh, he'll grow back. And so...
Perfect.
No complaint, no IA. Those were the days.
Yeah.
Could you imagine nowadays? I mean, man.
Well, you touch someone's neck or behind their ears and it...
Oh, we carotid and you choke them out.
Carotid control hold.
Yeah.
Carotid control. Then you said, no, it's carotid because we're not doing the windpipe. We're doing the carotid arteries.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And so so it's carotid artery. And later I'm instructing, and I go to instructor school, and they say, we now call it the LV, lateral vascular pressure technique.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
LVPT.
Why? It's
For God's sake.
the same thing. Well, we can't call it carotid because it's been banned by LAPD. So now we do the LV TP or PT. And so, Not now, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a statewide ban, or I
it's a
think it's
no-no.
nationwide, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think pretty much nationwide. Yeah, for sure our state, but yeah, I think nationwide. Like that's a hard no.
Yeah,
You know,
it was trained to me.
well, we were
And
all
I-
trained in it.
and
yeah.
I've used it and very
I want to say,
effectively.
Mark, you told me a story that you had to use that on somebody one time early
Yeah.
on in your career.
I used it twice. One dude got in a fight with the naked guy and ended up choking him out just because we had to.
The naked guy or
the naked guy.
Oh, you were up close and personal.
I was behind him. I spooned him. Technically, spooned him. Yeah, it was horrible. If you we did a strip search, and I'm looking to see when this guy spreads his butt cheek in the field in an apartment, closed, secure location. Back when we used to be able to do that, and my partner looked away when he spread his butt cheeks, but I looked and he tried to cover his hand or cover the baggie. And I was like, hey, and then it was on from there. And then just, he ended up, we had to.
Can I honestly ask you, dude? Okay. My theory was always, even when drugs were a felony here in California, like my thought was, if you have drugs up your ass, that's all you. Like, congratulations, go for it. You want to smoke something that's been up your ass, it's yours.
I call it being diligent. And if you're on probation and you were a druggie and we suspected, we were doing it.
Yeah.
The team that I was on, we strip searched all kinds of people constantly.
In corrections, any
you
felony
do-
drug arrest was a
Yeah,
strip
I know. I
search.
remember that every
Yeah.
drug arrest.
Actually, there was a minute there that every drug arrest was a strip search, and then it went to felony drug arrest was a strip search.
So how many
Yeah.
asses do you think you've looked at like throughout your career?
Oh, dude, you don't even want to know. I worked property after working booking.
Do you think guys like,
It was over 50 a night that we would take in, and you have to strip search
that's
everybody
I
in
feel like
property.
that's traumatizing, like just in and of itself.
Oh,
Like
I mean, I don't
compounding
know.
on like everything else in our job, but like
You think
do
I like see an asshole now, and I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
it's a
It's just,
butthole.
now-
it's just a butthole. Like,
Yeah, it's
who
like,
cares?
I mean,
Billy now is like, yeah, that's kind of a nice one.
like I'll tell you, like like the jail does teach you that nastiness is not that big of it. Like, I mean, like people are dirty. You get people coming in that are nasty, dirty, and like there's a point where you're like, oh, that smell, and then it's like once you're smelling it every single day, or you're seeing just dirty
gross.
nastiness every single day, you're just like, oh yeah, that's pretty nasty. But that other guy, man, he was way worse.
That's pretty gross.
Yeah, the smells and stuff. You just it's like anything in law enforcement. You become numb to some things
yeah.
out there, and it's an unfortunate side effect or a good side effect when it comes to smells. I can tell you that much. But
Kyle, did you not strip search people or take
I
people
mean,
in?
I have. Obviously, I have, but I was always kind of one of the ones that was like, I don't think I probably cared enough if it was like in your ass. I just was like, well, that's good for you, man. I'm out. Like
we love that in corrections when people would bring in people that brought dope in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Did you,
great.
did you search this guy? Yeah. Everything but where they keep the drugs.
Yeah, I would grab my glove if they had it in their booty hole, and I'd be like, "Here you go," and I'd drop it to the officer.
Or
If they
sometimes, like-
put their hands out, if they didn't have gloves on, like, "Here you go."
Yeah, take it.
That's on you.
Or sometimes
They're
they
like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Oh, this was in his butt."
or their ball, like they would tape it to their balls.
Balls.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to get into the
We don't even
weird
need to go
stories
there.
with that.
Like
but
this escalated.
yeah, this
into, like,
went to it.
completely.
Let's get back to our special
Yeah.
guest here.
Yeah.
who's-
But you're talking about the drugs and put things in perspective. When I started, possession of marijuana was a felony.
Yeah, could you imagine now? I mean,
Well, when
probably
I started,
any little bit.
it was if you had like 3 or 4 little dime baggies, which is like,
sales.
I mean, people were running from you for that.
They had a joint, they went to jail.
Yeah.
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 And I was a major. I mean, and if you found somebody with a half an ounce of, well, it wasn't coke then, but it was
Meth or
meth.
whatever.
Meth back then, but
probably crack or something. I mean,
something. But that's a big deal.
yeah, you were the shit if you got a half ounce.
You're probably going. They're gonna come get me and take me to narcotics and street narc.
Yeah. Now you have half ounce. You may get like a pat, maybe a pat on the back, but probably not even that.
That's a misdemeanor arrest, in my opinion.
yeah, it's a citation. I mean,
half
shit,
ounce?
you're gonna get a hey, good job doing your job, man.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, does anything stand out to you in particular? Like, I don't know, like a wild story, just kind of so far out there. Like you think back, you're like, holy shit, how did we get away with that? And, you know, thinking now like to today's policing, you'd probably be in jail. You know, if you had done it today.
Are the statute of limitations up on all this? I don't know.
They should be up. You should be good.
Yeah, but I think it's important to point out law enforcement when you started was way different than it is today.
So super like
I think citizens, when you worked the streets, citizens expected that. They wanted you to do stuff. I think it was different nowadays.
Well, I mean, the fact that his vest was purchased by his mom.
Yeah.
And that didn't change for a long time.
And I was happy when I got speed loaders to put in my revolver.
Yeah.
And have to pull them off my strip. And then as the progression, there's things that
did people
use of force probably is the most notable. I mean, you do.
Right.
I mean, our tactics and tools nowadays are tenfold to what yours were. Tactics, tools, resources.
They
everything.
issued mace, not pepper spray. They issued mace, and I was this time I was at SAC, and we go to a call, and they're wrestling with a guy on the ground with 3 officers, and I'm the last one. I'm late, and they're piled on him, and I'm running up to get on him, and right before I get there, they all pull back, and I don't know what they're doing when they pull back. So I dive on top of him. Well, what they did is they maced him.
Oh, God.
And I dive on him and roll around. I'm thinking I'm John Wayne here. I've got this guy. These cops are watching. I'll take care of him. And then all of a sudden my eyes start swelling. We get him handcuffed. They'd maced him. They knew to stand back. They're having a great laugh about it. Well, since you're here and you're the boot, he's yours. So I had to take him to the jail with the window down, with my face outside the door, outside the window, so I could see. And but mace, and I just then on it. Mace stayed in my locker.
Yeah.
So I had a baton and the gun, weaponless defense. There were no bean bags or
one handcuff, probably
taser. One, and when I progressed, I knew I needed 2 handcuffs. We didn't know what plastic cuffs were. Mm-hmm. And you had to buy your own flashlight. Otherwise, you got a little plastic one with 2 cells. So everyone went out and got a 5, 6, 7 cell Kel light or a stream light. And so that's what you had to do then. But as far as things that we did that I can remember, I went to a call and a guy, he calls and said, I killed my wife, come get me. And we respond, and now I'm quite a distance away, but I'm the first unit there. And my backup's, again, a little ways away. It's not SAC PD. And he comes out of the bushes right on top of me, and I have my flashlight, and I'm just walking up. I did everything wrong tactically. I'm walking up on the house, parked away, didn't park in front of the house, and he's there, and I at least have my flashlight in my left hand. He comes out, I'm thinking of reaching for my gun, because I see him, and he's obviously the suspect. And he's walking at me, and I'm yelling at him to show the hands. He won't, so I take my flashlight, dumb move. Left-handed, dumber move, and I throw it at him.
Smart.
As I'm pulling my gun, and it hits him in the forehead perfectly. Drops him, handcuff him. Backup shows up. We go in the house. He'd beat his wife up, but he didn't kill her, and he just did that. And I asked him later, why? I wanted you to kill me. He wanted suicide by cop.
Yeah.
And he got 12 stitches in his forehead.
Wow, so you freaking did a number on him.
And I'm thinking, this is internal affairs. Nope, never made a complaint.
Holy shit.
Today, I don't know what they would say.
You're definitely going to internal affairs for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like,
Dumb move with that.
I mean, I guess it depends on the
I
situation.
disagree. I mean,
but
that's a deadly force option there.
could be, but
yeah,
it's definitely getting investigated. Like, they're going to look into it.
Well, I mean, you got to
Well,
look
that
at your
big
policy
star.
too. You got to look at the
Big
policy of
star.
your department. So, like, I know our department has weapons of necessity, and I would definitely throw that as a weapon of necessity. And I mean,
Shouldn't throw
do
it
I
at
think
night.
it was a good idea?
Not at night.
No, not at all.
Did you immediately regret that decision of, oh shit, my light's gone?
Two reasons. One, it was night. Now I didn't have a flashlight. And after we got him handcuffed, it was my flashlight. So I got to go looking for it. Department flashlight, I probably would have left.
great.
Yeah.
I had to go look for that flashlight because, it's about a month's pay to buy one anymore. So.
That's fucking great. Yeah. So in the 30 years of your career, like you never had to actually fire your arm or your gun, and you never got into a shooting or anything, right?
No, I was shot at 4 times, but never.
No kidding.
Never.
Tell us what was that? I mean, what were those stories?
We were on a call. A woman was barricaded, wouldn't come out. She had a shotgun and a little bit wacky, and she wouldn't come out. And so we tried to negotiate, and that's not going to work.
What was you trying to negotiate? Like,
Well, I was just
We
thinking.
didn't have hostage negotiators. So
come out?
I was thinking your dad just said, yeah, a chick out there, she had a shotgun. She's a little wacky. And I'm thinking, well, any chick with a shotgun is wacky. Like, that's wacky.
I want to hear you negotiate. Hey, come out. No?
Yeah.
Please? Yeah.
My mom just bought me this badass
I got
new
a
vest.
new vest. Let's try it out.
Yeah. Anyways.
I had a flashbang, and we finally had been trained how to do a flashbang.
Pull, pin, throw.
Oh, shit.
I wish it was that easy. I have a certificate that I'm a flashbang certified. And so I took the flashbang, and I had 2 guys at the front door of the house. We were getting ready to go in and confront her. She'd gone to the back. Apparently, we thought she went to the back room. 2 of the guys are on the front porch prone, and I pull out the flashbang, and I'm going to toss it on the porch in front of them, but they're quite a ways back. And I miss.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, they were, oh no, what did you do? And they shook it off. We went in, and we stacked up. She was in the back bedroom, so we're stacked up to go in and confront her because we have her confined to the back. Negotiations, we were going to try. It didn't work. We went for about 2-3 hours.
Real quick, was she the only one in the house, or was there other people in there?
No, she was the only one at that
Okay.
time. We'd put some tear gas in there. That didn't work. So
Some old school gas.
it was ferret rounds. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean those are still used.
Oh, okay. And then she went to the back, and we're stacked up. And I remember I have actually the canine officer without his.
Weird.
This will make a good segue. We're there. He's the canine officer with his dog, and I said, "Send the dog in."
With a chick armed with a shotgun.
Yeah. See, I won't send.
I'd say,
I won't
fuck
send one of
you.
my guys. Send the dog in. He looks at me and says, "Fuck you! I'm not sending my dog in."
Yeah, good guy. Good. Yeah, good.
I said, "Okay," because the dog's out in the car. I said, "Go get your dog."
Yeah.
He said, "Fuck you! I'm not getting my dog."
Fuck you, let's go in.
That would be not a dog call.
I don't want to send my dog, I'll go in.
We had her confined to the back bedroom. That's really what we wanted to do. And we're trying to negotiate with her. And we had a little tiny tape recorder. So I threw it in the hallway so we could tape record what we were trying to do. We were really trying to talk her out of the place, out of the bedroom. She wouldn't. "Fuck you, I'm going to kill you all." And then boom, shotgun round goes off. Oh, okay, she has a shotgun. And so now we stack up. We're backed up. We just talking. Nothing's working. She fires another round. Now I have that canine officer in front of me. So we're actually, I don't know what you call it now. We're 3 stacked, prone. Mm-hmm. The canine officer kneeling, and I'm behind because I'm a sergeant, so I'm third one in the stack, so I'm safe. And,
That's smart.
And I tell him, I'm talking. I says, "Oh, hey, I have an idea." So I grab him by the shoulder and bring him back, and she fires a round, and it goes right through the sheetrock, corner of the sheetrock, and the brackets on the sheetrock, and blow the sheetrock away right where he was standing. It would have blown his nuts off. It was just at that right level. And we ended up having to shoot her, and I think she got shot several times. Survived.
Oh shit.
In fact, I had to go in after she was shot, and she was still bringing the shotgun up.
Jesus.
So just took it away from her, and she was.
What'd they shoot her with? Do you remember what kind of guns they had?
MP5.
No kidding. And she lived, huh?
Yeah.
Did she survive the whole ordeal?
Yeah. Everything.
And so it's funny. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm thinking that, you know, I'm thinking of that story in my head. I'm just thinking, you know, back then, like that's even when, like, you know, when we first started and I was on the SWAT team at Grass Valley, we used to go in on stuff like that. And now, I mean, could you guys honestly imagine going in a house with someone armed with a shotgun by themselves? You know,
No.
it's
With
just
no
never,
vest.
it's just
Wouldn't
never,
happen now,
never
but-
going to happen now. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people listening to this right now are probably, laughing right at themselves because it's like, holy shit. Like that's how police work was back in the day. Like you were going in, right?
Well, I mean, like that. This is, I think I can think of my department, and I've never been a SWAT guy, but I've heard the stories. I think up to maybe two years ago, they were still doing entries on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite like that, but they were still doing, like, not actively shooting. They probably would have backed out, but
yeah. But yeah, I mean,
they
it
were
was
still doing
a
entries,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, fuck,
now
could
I
you
don't even know if
imagine?
they do entries.
I mean,
yeah,
now
I
you've
doubt
got
it.
robots, you've got drones, we've got fucking
Yeah.
little mini drones will fly in a house. I mean, yeah, we're, you know, hot
You guys
gas.
didn't have drones back then?
Yeah.
That
Could
you
you
flew in the
imagine,
house?
right? I mean, holy shit.
Wait, you said
I
you
had
threw a tape
I had
recorder.
a tape recorder, and I threw it.
That's why I love. I honestly like. I enjoy hearing stories from, you know, guys that worked in your era, and just hearing like the stories of what it was like to be a cop back then versus now. I mean,
Well,
fuck. I mean, it's
you
so-
like those old stories, and I liked it when I came on, and the old timers were telling me how it's done. And I remember
Which was
I went to a call. It's in South Sac with a barricaded guy in there. He hadn't shot anything, but he said, "Come in here, I'm going to kill you." And we surround him.
So you go in.
And you're fairly new at this point because Zach PD, right? You're inexperienced.
I think I still was with my training officer, and we're behind the cars and being careful. And the sergeant shows up. You wouldn't certainly remember, but the sergeants drove around in station wagons with a ladder on the top.
Fucking Clark
So you
Griswold.
get up on the roof of old Ford.
Contour?
No.
What were they?
Not a Fairlane,
like an old
500.
Ford station wagon.
Ford station wagon.
Did it
and
have
they
like the wood paneling on the side?
No, but they painted over it. So that,
So it did.
the sergeant, I'll remember him to this day because he was a tough bastard. He had no T-shirt on, just his short sleeve shirt, a gun on his Sam Brown. He had a gun, handcuffs dangling, no extra rounds. I don't even know if he had a flashlight. He drives up in the driveway.
Did he have jeans on or what?
No, he was in his actual uniform, but but short sleeve Sac PD. In those days, we were wearing gray uniforms, gray shirts, and he gets out and he says, "What are you guys doing?" I says, "He's got a gun. He's barricaded, and we surrounded him, waiting." We couldn't call SWAT because there's one SWAT wasn't available. He says, "Well, what are you gonna do?" "Well, wait, we'll call him out." "Okay." He says, "We got calls stacked." Walks up the walkway.
Oh, fuck.
Kicks in the door.
Oh, my God.
Now, we're still not going after him. We're not that stupid.
I'd let him go by himself,
Kicks
too.
in the door. You hear all this. Drags the guy out, handcuffed, drops him at our feet, book him, and get back to work.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if the guy, to this day, I don't know if the guy had a gun or what. Well, this guy was an old Marine, and he just pissed off that we were stacked up, and he had calls stacking them. So he went in there and took care of the business, and then those were the days. And I said, "Oh, okay,
That's crazy.
So I'm seeing that, but we know that's not the way it's done.
No.
And,
Hell no.
And nowadays, I'm looking at the tactics today with all the equipment that is out there, and we don't have it. I mean, we didn't.
Well, I think
Maybe
it's
a bullhorn.
Yeah.
what I think is really interesting is how much law enforcement has progressed. even when you were there, like you're looking at things of better ways. Like let's throw
years. I saw the progression.
Yeah, let's throw a tape recorder down to try and record what we're doing. Put a video camera. I mean, it's interesting to see you're trying to create. I mean, it's almost like you're creating de-escalation back when that guy's packing snow in his ass.
Without even knowing it.
Without knowing it. Like you recognize as a problem, I'll take my time. Fuck it. I'm going to try something, throw my cuffs. Like, you could beat the guy's ass, but it's kind of neat to see how much change there's, and it's been evolving this whole time.
The guy packing his ass, I wasn't too sure I could kick his ass.
I'd be a little concerned too. I'd be like, I don't know
Anyone's
about this.
shoving snow in their ass.
Yeah, that's
shoving
pretty
snow in
legit.
his ass. He was 6'4",
Oh shit,
280,
Yeah,
and come to find out, when he came in later to the station, he walks in the door, and we're behind the glass. But glass, it's real. It's glass. It's not
ballistic
bulletproof or
glass.
anything.
Yeah.
And he walks in, and we're standing nearby. We could see him, and we all kind of just back up.
Like, oh shit.
Oh shit! Come in here, finish us. He came in and apologized. Well, what he was from England. He was a rugby player, that big, that strong, and he came in to apologize. And he says, I'm just going around the United States. I got in a car. What kind of car? A Volkswagen bus, and they offered me a joint, and I smoked the joint. Well, the joint obviously was laced with PCP. And he didn't know it, and he was.
It almost felt bad, right? Like
felt bad, yeah. But we didn't even put him in the jail there. We had to take him to a bigger jail.
He was too big.
boy
He was
jail.
too big for your jail. You're too big for this place.
He'd probably.
That's where the term was coined. You're going to big boy jail now.
That's funny, man. I mean, I love hearing like classic stories like that. I mean, I kind of get a kick out
I
of it.
lived to that. I had 30 years of progression, and you don't really notice it. Then you look back, and I start telling the stories back, and I go, yeah, you know what? We really had to work at things. In Rockland, we never had a new police car. We always bought our police cars from this highway patrol at auction.
Oh, dude,
So we're driving
beat up cars.
100,000 mile cars that weren't treated too well, and that was and we were happy to have them because at least we had a car that would run.
Yeah.
And we had one time they put us out in a Chevy Citation. You probably don't even know what a Chevy Citation is, but it's a compact car. But we did have, I'll tell you this, we did have the last of the 440s. I told you about the 440 Magnums. These things could fly. Well, Diplodogs came out in the 80s, and those were the worst dodges for law enforcement. Anyone out there listening to
Diplodog?
this, we call them Diplodogs. They're diplomats.
Oh, okay. I've heard of a diplomat. I'm like, what the fuck's a
Dodge
diplomat?
diplomat. We call them a Diplodog.
Okay.
And so people would remember those cars couldn't move. And so most of the fleets in all of the agencies, except Rockland, had that one last relic, the 440. And we were adjacent to I-80, the freeway. And so when a chase would start, the local agencies, including the highway patrol, and it's hard for them to do, would call and say, tell Rockland to bring their car out. This guy's getting away from us. And that 440 would go 140 miles an hour. And it sucked, get about 4 miles to the gallon. But we didn't care. So it was different little cars. And that's how you can almost track the progression of the department from cars. One of my patrol cars broke down going to a bank robbery. I couldn't get to the bank robbery. They said, well, we got to get better cars. So then we go to surplus cars from the highway patrol. And now I go visit Rockland PD, and they're in these SUV Tahoes.
Yeah,
Brand new.
Brand new.
Roll
Leather,
out, roll out.
and remote star.
18 antennas on top. So what are all those antennas for?
Yeah.
What would you do with those things?
Yeah.
Tracking.
YouTube and Google.
Dispatch is there. They track in the car. I says, what? They track the car?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Shit, I've been in situations where I got in a bad situation. Like, where are you? I'm like, shit, I don't know. Map my car.
Oh, yeah.
Map me. Fucking clue.
I've heard that on the radio, like, map me. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah. That's well.
I've never had to do that, fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are the progress. When I was, again, Kyle, I was 21 years old. I was too young to be probably a cop.
Well, I'm right there with you. I back, when you're that age and you're in it, like, you don't really think of that because you think you can fucking do anything, right?
And I didn't have much life experience either.
At 20 years old, you don't have any life experience.
And my training officer, field training officer, I still golf with him. He's 75 years old.
No shit, that's cool.
And I apologize to him every time we golf.
That's pretty cool.
I says, I must have put you. He says, yeah, you did. In fact, I had to take a rotation off after he trained me. So
that's pretty wild.
What I want to ask, so you were a cop for almost 40 years, you were saying earlier.
Well,
37.
Yeah, but street cop, maybe
30.
15, 20 years street cop.
So, yeah, but you have a ton of experience. And we had talked about on the other podcast before in answering questions, what it's like to have a son or a daughter go into law enforcement. So we talked like what it's like from your perspective, Billy, to have a dad in law enforcement, to grow up with that, to see that, to idolize it, to hear the stories, and then to go into that field. But I don't think we've ever had a perspective of what it's like to be the dad that's experienced that stuff and then to see your kid follow in your footsteps.
Well, it's unfortunate for him because he grew up in Rockland.
So his head up his ass. He didn't know the real world.
He couldn't do shit in that town that we wouldn't know about.
Yeah, he told us.
But I thought, and now as the years progress, and my daughter gets together, and Billy gets together, and we sit around and they start telling me stories of what they did when they were in high school.
You're like, oh,
what
really?
What the hell? With my car? Yeah. And
That wasn't me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I never, and I think he told you, law enforcement's in the family. My great grandfather was a sheriff in Nevada, the sheriff.
No kidding.
In the state of Nevada. And then my dad, a cop, and so it skipped my grandfather. My great grandfather skipped my grandfather, my dad, me, and Billy.
That's pretty cool.
But I probably thought he'd be a good cop, but I'm not going to even push him in that direction. And his mother said, you don't even talk to him about this. There's no mention. If he wants anything, tell him something else. Tell him to become a firefighter. So for a while, he wanted to be a firefighter. And I didn't really push him into the law enforcement, and I was fine. That's...
Did he talk about it as a kid?
The cycle. Not really. We didn't talk about him becoming. He grew up around it. He knew. FATS training. You guys remember the FATS training?
Yeah. The FAT simulator.
FAT simulator. The guy would go around California with a trailer and set up FATS for us.
And
you probably remember it. Yeah.
Describe to everybody for
video
listening
game
that doesn't know what FATS
what's
is.
it stand
it is a video
for?
game.
Anyway,
Firearms. It's a simulator trailer,
but it's not that sophisticated. It was a screen.
It was like a fucking video
projector,
game.
and you actually shot.
It's like Duck Hunt from Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
exactly.
But it wasn't laser based. It was actually little things would hit the screen, and that's how you could register. That was
Right.
And so they set it up at the fire station for training in Rockland, and I took him. I don't know,
I remember
10,
that.
10, 11.
Yeah.
I took him in there to the Fat Street. He knows a little bit about video games, and so put him through the FATS training. And he went through it a couple of times, so he started getting used to the scenarios. So when the officers would show up and they shot the wrong guy or shot a hostage, and I said,
Oh, shit.
well, shit, here's my 10-year-old, 12-year-old son. Let him go through it. I'll show you. And he wouldn't shoot the pregnant woman because he saw her 3 times before. And they go, oh
shit.
He's really good.
Dirty.
So that was some exposure. But he was around all my friends are law enforcement.
Yeah.
And so he grew up around it, but he didn't want to go into it, and we were fine with that. And his mother was very fine with that. Then one day he just said, okay.
What was that conversation like for you when he said, I want to be a cop? What was your thought?
I didn't want to discourage him. Probably in retrospect, looking at where it was going at the time, law enforcement was still
Yeah, it was
respected.
pro. It was pro law enforcement. Respect level was still there. Yeah, it's not what it was today or is today.
There, what you could tell somebody to do something, they would do it. You know, for their safety and yours. And then I said, no, okay. But then he decided he wanted to. I says, okay, if you're going to go to the academy. You're going to dedicate yourself to the academy because you're not going to get through working and going to the academy. Can't be done. My day, you know, I went. It was 11-week academy. Sure. It was a live-in academy, if you want to call it that. It was barracks, and 11 weeks. His was 6 months.
Yeah, they're about 6 months.
6 months. You're going to dedicate yourself to this. We're going to make sure you have the best equipment. You're going to, and I emphasize, emphasize it for the youngsters out there. Take care of yourself physically. I spent my time on the education side. Mm-hmm. If I had spent as much time on my physical as I did on getting my college degrees, because I thought that's what you need to promote. And then I also told him when he became a cop, don't fuck up a very good career by promoting. Mm-hmm. You know, find that job. Mine was a watch commander. That was the best job. And
that was a sergeant.
Yeah, as a sergeant watch commander. That was the best job I could have. And then you progress from there and you take on responsibilities. I says, but you're going to go and you're going to immerse yourself and you're going to dedicate yourself. But take care of yourself physically. And if you want to do the education thing, do that down the line. Because when I started at SAC, even back then, you needed an AA degree. And
you still do.
Yes.
And pretty much almost you need a bachelor's degree, I would think. And certainly you're not going to promote anywhere these days without a bachelor's degree. So I'm running out getting the degrees, which I think I should have spent more on the physical. But during my street time, I was in pretty good shape. But this takes its toll. The job takes its toll. I'm preaching to the choir here. This job takes its toll on you physically, emotionally, and that's what I was concerned with. That, you know, the PTSD side. Can we call it PTSD or just PTS? What's it called now?
I think I think people, you know,
the mental stress.
Well, they're saying, you know, people don't want to call it PTSD because it's not a disorder and all that. You know, the reality is it's a mental, you know, PTSI. I
think we all have some form of it, so we can say whatever we want about it, right?
Yeah.
We call it whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Post-trauma, and you know, you can have a major event, and that's going to be traumatic. And for people who haven't had that experience and in a major event, you know, they witness a shooting or something, that's going to traumatize the average person. Law enforcement kind of goes to it, and it's cumulative. It goes over not one time. You're several, you know, dead baby calls and over, and they carry it with you. You have to remember when I started, officer involved shooting. When you're done, maybe the DA. I don't even think the DA came out in those days, but somebody came out and would do an investigation, talk to you as a witness, and then debrief was go to the bar. And that's where we would debrief. Counselor? There was no counselors.
Yeah.
The only psychiatrist you ever saw coming on was the psychiatrist that you needed to see, or a psychologist, either way, one or the other. You had to see to pass your psych.
To get hired.
Psych interview, pre-employment psych interview, and that's the last time you saw a guy. Mm-hmm. So
there's nothing offered either. Like, it's not like that was your choice.
It wasn't a big.
There was just nothing. There was no, hey, I got this person you can talk to. It was like, no one even knew.
Go talk to Frank. He went through a shooting.
Yeah.
He'll tell you
Which
what
is
it's
still
like.
actually a good. No, I will still say like that's still a good. That's still a good
I thought you were going to say
avenue.
Frank the bartender. But
Go talk to
but
Frank.
like, you know, I mean, if you're involved in something, I mean, everyone at this table can relate. Like, you know, sometimes I feel more comfortable talking to a buddy or whatever. Like I still think that is still a healthy thing to do. Unfortunately, I think for our generation in law enforcement, your generation never created anything there for cops to go to. No therapy. No, not even like take the therapy out of it. Like if someone had an issue, right, with something back in when you were a youngster cop, and you were feeling kind of like, well, something's not feeling right here, you wouldn't say anything, right?
Certainly not.
Because if you did,
No.
you'd be looked at
You're
like, what
pussy.
the fuck? Yeah, you're a bitch or whatever, right? So I think we've obviously come a long way since then, like fucking strides. But your generation back then didn't set up our generation to be successful in that category, only because when we were all fresh young cops starting out, we had your generation training us. And, fuck, I there's no way I would ever say anything like if I was struggling or having an issue or whatever.
Like
they'd be like,
or even your sergeant.
yeah, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
you would be,
Suck it up.
you would be ousted if you said anything. And so I would say probably within the last like 5 years, this whole mental health for cops and post-trauma has really come a long way. And to the point where it's almost, I don't want to say too much, but it's kind of like everywhere you fucking turn, like that's it, what everyone's talking about, which is good and healthy. I think there's a gray area there, personally. Too much is too much, right? But besides that, I mean, man, I couldn't fucking imagine like some of the stuff you guys saw back then is no different than what we're seeing now. Maybe depending on where you work, you're going to see it on a larger scale, but man, back then, like you didn't have anybody, but like you said, Frank, the fucking bartender and like your buddies and booze. And that was it.
See, in Placer, I was a deputy coroner because you're also
so you're seeing your dead bodies.
You're going to all the dead
all the
body
time.
calls, all the dead body calls, and you're sitting in on the autopsies some of the time, and you just have. And I can remember you guys even talked about this, but I had a corporal, and it was his rotation, and it was where the local trauma hospital was. Unfortunately, it's in my beat, and so anyone who dies in that hospital, which is frequent, has to go to the coroner if it's an unattended death or suspicious death. So they call the coroner. I would go, but the corporal I was working with, and I was a youngster. I was still 24, 20. I didn't have children. He had kids, and he says, "Listen, I will take all the cases if you take the baby cases or the children cases. Mm-hmm. I don't want anything to do with those." And I said, "Oh yeah, okay. I don't want to."
Yeah, right. But it's different.
But I don't relate to it. And he related to it. And then later on in my career, I go, man, I couldn't. I don't want to deal with that right now.
Yeah,
I couldn't. You're going to have to, but I wouldn't want to deal with it.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things about evolution of law enforcement is, you've seen a lot of it, and still now with a son that's in law enforcement, and then your father in law enforcement. But what's interesting about law enforcement is there's a lot of stuff that does not progress, and it needs to progress, and it's not. And that's what a lot of people really recognize. But the mental health aspect is one thing that is real. It's almost, it seems like it's too much, but
that's what I was saying.
But I think some of it though that is a good progression, but there's so much more that's not going with it that it looks like it's too much.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to look at the generations too, just as a whole, as the person and everything. And there's no doubt in my mind, and people can argue with it. My generation, I would even say the younger cops now, they're starting off our different generation.
Yeah,
are
for sure.
soft.
Yep.
We're soft, and we call them softer, whichever which way you want to call it. And that's part of society changing on us growing up. Whereas, we all dealt with the bully epidemic or something that happened. Social media is huge right now, and social media, with digital bullying,
it's like
or
social
something
media
like that.
bullying. Yeah.
Those are all things that social media, I don't even know if you still have it, but you didn't have social media or anything like that. You didn't have that stuff. Yeah. And you also had, and I think the only good thing I can say, not the only good thing, but one of the good things I can say about us being in war for the majority of my adult career is that has given us a little bit of skills in law enforcement, both on the mental side, and it's also toughened up some of our generation. And you had that with, Vietnam and you were just outside, like you were almost drafted, right? But you didn't go to Vietnam. But there was a huge majority of the guys that you worked with when you started that were Vietnam vets, and anyone that says a Vietnam vet was a soft guy, and that's someone who's seen way worse than he's going to see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. My dad was drafted in Vietnam and spent 4 years in Vietnam. And I mean, everybody will say that about their dad, but that's a hard, badass motherfucker.
Yeah.
I remember we grew up on a ranch, cattle ranch, and he was physical and everything he did. He cut the end of his thumb off, splitting wood, wrapped it in a t-shirt, taped it up, and finished the day, and then went to the hospital at night. And it's like, I mean, you're totally right, Billy, because there is a different, and I don't think that's anything wrong, but there is a softer generation. The ability to be tough is losing that. So to see the evolution of law enforcement when you were there, Bill, in a way you ran the streets, there was respect, it was physical, like it was get the job done, do things different, and it's evolved and it's so different to now where it's kind of,
we have a lot of
different
feelings now.
Yeah.
On everyone does. It's on all sides.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a lot of feelings now.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, perspective on the war. I was number 12 on the. People don't understand the lottery. Lottery those days was not a good thing. Lottery is how you got drafted.
Yeah.
And I was drafted. My lottery pick was 12, which meant you're going to Vietnam. And this is 1973. You're going to Vietnam for sure. Well, my time's about to come up, and they abolished the draft, and my number dropped, so I did not get drafted. But I did work with all those, and those are the ones you went to when you had a tactical issue. Mm-hmm. And they took law enforcement another step because that's who you went and got. I remember a guy from Contra Costa. He became the sheriff of Contra Costa. He was a Marine. He'd only hire Marines, fresh out of Vietnam, but he wanted the Marines. Mm-hmm. The chief of police of Sacramento at the time was a Marine, and he liked the Marines. They brought a whole nother level of training and expertise, and then fade, my generation, I really didn't experience one until we had 9/11 and what occurred in Afghanistan and Iraq. And now those guys are coming out. Their level of training and sophistication is way up there. Mm. If you could temper it, you can't bring
you can't bring the war mentality to our communities.
But there's techniques in their tactics. If you could take advantage of that perspective. And the war did another thing. If you think about it, the number of officers shot in the last 30 years, not as many die. The reason not as many die is because back in the olden days, about when I was just beginning and is towards the end of that era, you have trauma centers. You have soft body armor. You have you have
hard body armor.
You have that. You have doctors working in the ER room who worked in Afghanistan and Iraq. They know how to patch up bullet holes. So people getting shot, they're shooting more than ever.
Yeah.
Not as many are dying. But imagine if you didn't have the soft body armor and the helicopter rescue and transport and all that. And a paramedic shows up and not some guy who had his first aid card,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously we've come so far. But you're right. I mean, the new generation coming up is a lot different than when your dad was growing up in the law enforcement community. It's, a lot different than when we grew up in the law enforcement community.
It was different. It was when I get those old timers those old timers, they don't know what they're talking about. Now you look back, these guys had to take care of business.
Yeah, that's survival.
Yeah, it's crazy to think where will law enforcement be in 30 years? God only knows, right? Who knows? But
I can't even speculate.
Who knows? We'll be out of the business by then. But like it does have to carry on, right? And it's not the the job itself is not going anywhere. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just, you know, I'd love to be able to see in the future and know where,
Since
where
the
we're gonna be in 3 years.
Romans, the New Centurions, Joseph
Yeah.
Wambaugh book. You guys probably don't even know who Joseph Wambaugh is, but he was a novelist and he was an ex-LAPD and he wrote a series of books, the Choir Boys, and that's where we went. We read those books and said, "Oh, that's what it's like." Or you got the Street Survival book. That's how you got your training. Now you travel around, Kyle, and you go to them.
Yeah.
You don't have to send people.
Or I hit a YouTube video. I mean, it's simple
Oh
as that.
yeah.
I mean,
No, you're right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Like,
or
it's everywhere.
a Zoom class. I've gone to Zoom classes. I've
Yeah.
done all these things, and you know that allows the training to go a lot wider, right? Because you know you're in a small town. You're not going to back in the day. You're not going to get the same training that LAPD was getting, because they're going to be like, okay, I can go to LAPD and I can train, 10,000 cops, or I can go to small town and I can train one cop. It's just it doesn't make sense.
There should never be the excuse if you're a cop and you want the training and you're acting like you can't get it or whatever. Like, no, it's there. Like,
But that's
a lot
nowadays.
of training. No, I'm saying nowadays,
Yes.
if you're in law enforcement today and you're complaining because you want to act like you can't get, I don't know, whatever training it is that you want, it's out there. It's either online. I don't know. I mean, fuck YouTube videos. I mean, dude, it's out there. Right. I mean,
You should be constantly seeking training.
you should be, and it's there. It's available to you. And if you have to pay a little bit of money to go to this stuff on your own, like, you should. If your department doesn't want to pay for it, you should go to these trainings because it's your ass on the line.
Yep, your safety.
It's your safety. It's your family that you're going home to. And I've said it before in another episode, like, don't rely on your department to train you up. You have to do it on your own, period. Yeah. We don't get enough training days and hours and throughout the year to do it. So you got to do it on your own. But before we wrap up the episode, we get a ton of questions from, I think, a lot of younger officers or guys that are wanting to get in law enforcement about, I don't know what to expect from the job. And, since you've obviously climbed the ranks from bottom to top, in your perspective, doing those jobs that we haven't done, what advice would you offer cops today? That either A, want to advance in their career, what advice would you give them to be successful?
Well, know your department. There are departments out there that if you're assertive, it's going to be frowned on. Mm-hmm. And if that organization, the culture of that organization is, no, don't go out and work the streets, then my advice, get another department, which isn't hard to do anymore. But know the department and the culture and see where you're headed, so you know that your skill set will fit in there, and find out what your skill set is. You're going to change several times. Mm-hmm. You're going to go in there and say, I'm Billy, I'm going to be a K9, and well, he's going to be a firefighter, and then he's going to be a K9, and then he's going to do this or that. But you know what? Just because you set that goal, mm-hmm. or I want to be a chief of police, I want to be a captain, I wanted to promote, I wanted to be a boss. And that's what I set out to do. I got too focused on one area, and I should have paid more attention to the other areas. And it took away somewhat from my family, because I was in school most of my career trying to get college degrees, and they aren't that necessary. Mm-hmm. They are in some agencies. You can get more money.
Yeah, you're required to.
And some agencies you're required. But I say the training side, pay attention to the training side, and get with the other people that know, and find out. You know what? Probably the best thing I can say is find that mentor.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you're done and you progress, then you become the mentor. Mm-hmm. And you pass that on, and hopefully you take and I've had good mentors. Some things they said were nonsense, but at the time I thought they were good. But as I realized they weren't, you pick them out, you pull them out, but took the very good stuff, most of it, and I carried that on and I shared it. And then those youngsters who took it from me, they said, he doesn't know what he's talking about on that subject. Thank God, because I was probably wrong.
Yeah.
And they found something else. And so seek out that mentor, keep your training level up, and take care of yourself. And I just don't mean your body. My body's broken down physically because I mean, run over by a car, throw down stairs, been beat up. I mean, I'll admit I've been beat up. I mean, I didn't lose the fight, but I got my ass kicked a couple of times. That takes its toll. But that the mental side, the stress, find something to deal with the stress.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you just quickly that a bricklayer at the end of the day, he looks back in his wall and he's built a brick wall. He has something to show. He can get his kids. Drive around.
Yeah.
Look, I built that building. I did that fence. I brick wall. At the end of your day as a cop, you look back and you probably aren't going to see anything that you built. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to see carnage. So find something outside of the job that gives you some perspective. And I don't care what it is. You paint, you build things, you're a welder, do something that creates.
I like that. Shit, I really like that. Actually, that's a great idea. And maybe subconsciously cops do that on their own time. I know I like to go out and I'm big into like gardening and, you know, what man likes to admit that, right? But I do like to do stuff like that, build stuff or whatever. And you're right. You actually get to see a tangible thing that you've done yourself, right? That you've created. Where in our job, like, you go out every day, you fucking go to calls, you deal with bad shit, and do you really see a change at the end of the day? You really don't, because the very next day you come into work and you're doing the same shit over and over again. A lot of the times you're arresting the same people. I think that's super valuable advice that you just gave.
Maybe a hobby or something.
Yeah.
Billy would know. Handyman, I'm not the guy for that. So
I've stolen all his tools on purpose.
I don't save other people.
To save me time, because I got to go over there and figure out what he messed up.
That's a great piece of advice.
He could do it. I couldn't. So I had to find other things.
It doesn't have to be being a handyman, right? Like I said, I like to do gardening stuff, right?
Handyman?
Anything. I like it. I like
that's
that
great.
idea.
I wish that speech that you just gave, I think is incredible, and I wish I would have had that when I first started.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know.
That's an old timer telling you.
Yeah,
we when we started, like, we don't get that, and you also mentioned about finding a mentor. I wholeheartedly agree with you that's such a huge thing. Is guys got to find mentors, right? Whoever that mentor is to you, and I always say, like, you don't have to go tell the person you're their mentor. You know, just identify somebody that you idolize and can gain something from. And, you know, really good mentors, I think, they never even knew they were probably a mentor.
Yeah.
They just were, right? Because they had great character, good work ethic. They did the right thing. They stayed out of trouble, and, they're not perfect. And my mentors aren't perfect, but
I don't think you should have a mentor. I think you should have mentors, because like you said, you're going to take some of the stuff that your mentor is going to tell you. You're going to be like, there's
a better
stupid.
one over there. Yeah.
And but you take parts from that person, take parts from that person.
But I think there's always one that really stands out.
I remember one. You probably,
I do. Yeah.
I mean, I can remember one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have that. My buddy was Robbie. My entire career was always there. I mean,
always running things out.
Oh, totally. Just would never misguide you. Like, there's I think there's always one, and you should learn from everyone for sure.
Mm-hmm. But know the difference between a mentor and a rabbi.
Yeah.
The mentor is going to help you with the situation you're building. The rabbi is going to help you get promoted or get you to a better job. And for good reason. They say, no, you need to go back and get this education, or that's the rabbi looking out for you, where the mentor's helping you with something you're having on the street or just emotion.
Or at home.
No, great point.
I mean, you know, we all take this job home, whether we want to believe it or
lie
not.
about it, but you do take it home.
You take it home, and your family deals with it. So sometimes you need to talk to, first of all, your family. But, you know, like I was super fortunate that law enforcement was brought home, whether he wanted to or not. And I got to see that. So I recognize those things and talk to my wife and talk to my mom. and I talked to my dad, but he's on my team, I would say, on most of it. But talk to my mom sometimes. She's like, "No, you're being an asshole." You're like, "Oh shit, I guess I am."
One more story, and it involves Billy as a youngster.
Oh shit!
And no, I'm leaving those because statute of limitations.
And I'm still employed.
Yeah, you're still employed. But I would sleep pager next to the bed because that's what and I would get called out because it's such a small department. You remember that somebody's in pursuit, chasing. I mean, we chase a murder suspect. They called me from house. I jump in the car. I had coveralls with my badge on it. Boom, and you go and jump in that whatever car you had, and go help them out. But the one day, getting ready, loading the kids up. We're going to Disneyland. Woo, okay. Put them in the Suburban or the Jeep. I can't remember.
It's the Jeep.
And I got the family in the car and get ready to leave. The pager goes off. Oh. And I go, what the? Okay. Call in on my landline. And, pursuit in Sac County. And it crashed. And it's over there near the freeway. Big perimeter. I said, okay, let me go over there and just see before we go to Disneyland. Drive over there, park with the kids.
Oh, shit.
In the car.
Billy was going to call us before he was a cop.
Yeah.
He's been
his
geek.
mother yelling at me, and I go and Sac County is here. It's their chase, and I knew the guys because I'd worked with them before.
Yeah.
And they come up and they used to call me Warthog. That was my nickname, Warthog. And they say, Warthog, what? We want to do this. We want to do this. I says, you got a helicopter? We haven't seen a helicopter in Placer County. And so, yeah, he says, what? I'll do the perimeter. Do that. I got more units coming. It's yours, baby. We don't know what. I got 2 units, maybe 3 on. Let's just go with what we have. By the way, my kids are in the car. We're on our way to Disneyland.
Oh.
I can remember talking to them, and I look over, and in the culvert next to the command post now, the command post has been set up. I see these little beady eyes coming out of a culvert.
Oh, God.
It's the guy
Yeah.
next to the command post.
Oh.
So I go, hey, that who you want? Guns, grab him, take him. And
Dad's a hero.
Yeah.
gotta go to
Congratulations,
Disneyland.
Billy.
See you later.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Let's go. That's
great.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, hey, listen,
I got like 30 more stories I can think of that I would want, but
we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, after this, we'll grab a beer and we'll continue our story session. But we'll wrap this up for tonight. And man, Bill, thanks for coming over.
for having me.
Thanks,
Seriously, we appreciate it. I've told you before, like I respect the hell out of guys in your generation and hearing cool stories from the past.
Just don't call us the
fun.
greatest generation. That's the World War II people. We're not that old.
Yeah. Well,
You're the broke dick
I think it's
generation.
You're the
great.
broke dick generation. Yeah.
for the cop generation, I respect you guys. So thanks again for coming over. And then again, we do want to thank our sponsor, TAC Ops. Again, go check out their website, swatconference.org. Check out what they got going on. And with that, do you guys have anything else to add?
Nope.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks. And we usually end our sessions on a toast, so let's give a cheers. Cheers, and cheers to you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Hey, 49, shots fired.
Copy additional shot fired.
Shots fired, shots fired. He's shooting at us.
Suspect shooting an officer.
Suspect down. He's at the base of the stairs. White t-shirt, white male.